Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good afternoon to all participants. Thank you for joining us in ADE webinars and virtual workshop for program My Digital Maker Virtual Fair 2020. Right. Again, thank you for coming and joining us. Today we are going to learn from our expert ADE class of 2017. Okay, Kerwin. He is from Australia. All right. So for this session, I just to tell all of participants, our ADE in worldwide is around 2,947. Okay, 45 countries and regions. Okay, this is just an information to all participants. Okay, and then all right, this is the schedule from day 1 until day 4, where we start from 5th October. All right, and today is 8th October. Okay, 8th October. For this afternoon, we are with Kerwin, okay, for sharing about augmented reality and augmented. And for tonight at 9 p.m, we are going to learn from Stanley Sim Yong Seng, okay, visualizing mathematics with numbers. All right, and this for the next day from 9 October until 11 October. Okay, all right, so I would like to introduce our FACI today, Kerwin. He will teach us about augmented reality with augmented curriculum. Okay, so participants for this event, for this workshop, we need an iPad running iPad OS 13 or above. Okay, and make sure in your iPad you have installed Reality Composer apps and also download the file. Okay, so without further ado, I will give this mic to Craig. Are you ready, Craig?
Yes, thank you, Sir Craig.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, Craig, the mic is yours.
All right, I just need to share my screen. If you can enable that for me.
Okay, I will make you a host now.
Yep.
Okay.
That's better.
All right.
All right, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for, excuse me, having me along today. Let me just get this screen sharing. Where have we gone? Okay, whoop, my screen has failed to start sharing. Let's get out of there. Are you seeing my screen now, or just me? We'll try again.
No, we only can just see.
You can just you.
No, not your screen, just you.
Yes. All right, good.
Just me. All right, we will go again. How's that? Excellent. Excuse me, and I apologise. I've got a little bit of a croaky throat this afternoon, so I don't normally sound like this. So apologies if I'm a little bit hard to understand. Am I clear enough for you all?
Yes. Cheers.
Oh, cool.
Very
excellent.
Clear.
All right. Well, thank you very much for attending my session this afternoon. Augmented reality is something that's really exciting to me, and it's something that's relatively new in schools and in education. So I've been doing a little bit of work with it over the last 12 months, and it's wonderful to be able to share with you this afternoon some ideas that hopefully you can take into your classrooms, or for students who are here, that you can go and impress your teachers and show them things that you can do. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of my background just to start off with, so that you know where I've come from. This is a photo of me with my students at the beginning of this year. I am currently the head of department for maths, technologies and staff development at Foxwell State Secondary College. which is on the Gold Coast in Queensland. Right from my office, I can actually see the Gold Coast, very nice view. This group of students is my Genius Bar students. So we actually set up a Genius Bar exactly like Apple has in their stores, and these students receive some training from this lovely gentleman. So this is the sort of thing that I like to do. I like to look at ways that I can entice students to be excited in the classroom, and work with them to look at new things. Originally, so I'm quite old. Maybe I don't look it, but I'm 54, so I've been doing this for quite a while. I actually started out on micro:bit computers. Some of you may have heard of them. I used to write applications on the micro:bit computer. When Apple first came out, the micro:bit had no software, so I would have a look at what Apple was doing and then emulate the software on micro:bit. So one of the things that I've always liked doing is looking at how I can really take technology forward and do different things with it, not just out-of-the-box type things. I went on then to be involved in 2 schools where I implemented laptop programs in a one-to-one scenario. And then more recently, I was a principal in a school, but I decided to change career paths and go back to being a head of department. But when I was a principal in a school, I was responsible for an iPad program where we basically had a one-to-one iPad program, one of the first schools in Queensland where that occurred. But I was always looking for ways in which we could leverage digital to make sure that we weren't just using iPads for playing games. I want students to be able to create, which is why I like augmented reality. And then finally, as Sukri has already mentioned, in 2017, Apple recognized the work that I've done and I became an Apple Distinguished Educator. So I was very excited about that. And now I get to speak to people and thank you and share with you the work that I've done. So as I've mentioned a couple of times, what I like to do is to look at ways in which we can create. To me, using the iPad, using our MacBooks is all about creating. And while there are certainly applications that we can use where we're using what the designer has intended for us to do, to me, the best way to learn is to actually create and go outside the box of what we're looking to do. So what I'm wanting to do today, my learning intentions with you, is for you to gain an insight into the capabilities of augmented reality to enhance student learning and engagement. We're going to have some exploration, some hands-on with Reality Composer, which is the tool that we use to develop augmentation through Apple, and have you actively create some augmented environments. And to do that, I'm going to step you through the SAMR model. So if the SAMR model is new to you, I'll be explaining that as we go so that you can get a really good feel for what to do. Now, I will hopefully get some success with you this afternoon. This is, I must admit, the very first time that I've presented via Zoom for something that's a hands-on activity. But with a bit of luck, we will be able to tick these and say that you can go away considering how to use augmented reality, that you can use Reality Composer, and that you've got some interesting ways to be able to apply what we've done today in your classrooms or situations. So let's get underway. First of all, just because obviously I wasn't sure who would be attending this afternoon, I just wanted to give a really, really brief snapshot about what augmented reality is. Maybe even to allay some fears, because I know some people do think that when we talk about augmented reality that it could be something that's scary, I guess, but it's actually really simple to get into. So as I've got there on the screen, it can be defined as building upon the real world using layers of real-time information, accurate 3D representations, and having that all come together and being in front of you and making it feel like it's actually there with real objects. You can see a couple of examples there where if you wanted to try out what does the new Apple Watch Series 6 look like on your wrist, you can pop a cardboard cutout on your wrist and then use augmented reality to find that cardboard cutout and show you what the Apple Watch would look like on your wrist. So that's just one example of how it can be used. What I did want to mention as well is how augmented reality works in the environment with us. So it's no different to how we view the world. Everything is in 3 planes. So we have our X plane, which is basically our left and right, our Y plane, which is up and down, and our Z plane, which gives our distance. And it's through the Z plane that we actually start getting the depth and start getting the appearance of objects being in 3D, but appearing to be real for us. So here's just a quick example of how it can be applied. So in Queensland schools, we have a lot of restrictions in place for students being able to handle chemicals in the classroom, particularly in the younger year levels, 7, 8, 9. So using augmented reality, we can still provide students with an opportunity to participate in an experiment without there being any danger. One of the things that I'm going to talk to you about a little bit later on in the session is, as I mentioned, how can we actually use Reality Composer to create something like what you've just seen in that little video ourselves. Because as I mentioned, I'm more about creating rather than always using somebody else's product. I'm not going to read that to you, but I did just want to make a little bit of a reference to the difference between augmented reality and virtual reality. Sometimes there's a bit of confusion about that. Essentially, the main difference is that with virtual reality, to be fully immersed in the environment, your eyes need to be tricked into thinking that you're in another environment. And that occurs usually through wearing virtual reality goggles. It requires a lot more equipment. It's expensive to get going. Augmented reality can be set up straight on your phone or on an iPad without the need for any additional equipment. So that's, again, why I have a love for this topic. Okay. So obviously we are all educators or we're students in education, and there are lots of ways that we could actually apply augmented reality in the classroom. So perhaps we've got students who are disengaged in reading. If you have a look at that first photo there, we could actually get the child to turn a book into a more realistic, more interactive version of the story. Perhaps I'm a science teacher and I'm wanting to teach about the body. I certainly can't go dissecting anyone in the classroom, but by wearing a special augmented reality t-shirt, I can have a look at the insides of a person in real time. The one on the end I really like, and this is one that I'm going to try with my own students over the next term, and that is where if you have some sort of reward card system occurring in the classroom, rather than just giving them a standard printed card, you could give them a card where in order for them to be able to see what reward they've received, they need to use augmented reality to actually view what the card is telling them. So there's lots and lots of ways. It's just about having creativity and having a really good think about what we can do to put it together. Okay, again, here's just a short video of science augmented reality. All right. This next one, again, just a brief view. I love this app. This is called Scavenger. And this allows you to set up scavenger hunts. But again, I'm looking at how to use augmented reality to design my own. I'll stop that one there. Sorry, the music was a little bit loud on that. but I will talk to you about how you can possibly design your own scavenger hunt using augmented reality before the end of the session. All right, so I mentioned earlier that I teach using the SAMR model. So the SAMR model involves us working through the enhancement stages into transformation. At the bottom level, we start at substitution, which is basically where we take technology and we substitute it for something that we're already doing in the classroom. And what we're aiming for is redefinition, which is where we try to do things with technology that couldn't be possible before. So what I'm going to do to introduce Reality Composer to you and actually get you to start doing some hands-on with Reality Composer is to work through these 4 levels and show you how easy it is to start at the substitution level but aim towards the redefinition level. In my own classrooms, I'm at the modification level, but certainly working towards redefinition, and that's something that I'm aiming for in 2021. All right, so in substitution, just a little brief snapshot. This is where, as I mentioned, we directly substitute a more traditional source of teaching for something with technology. So in other words, it's a simple bare bones direct replacement. So an example of this would be where if I'm studying animals of the world, if students in my class haven't seen wild animals, then I could do an excursion, and if the excursion to the zoo is not possible, then I could use my iPad to take them to the zoo. And we're going to have a look at how we can use substitution now to very quickly create a simple visit to the zoo. So here's a demonstration video. This is what we're going to aim to create very shortly. This is my dog being overlooked by a tiger in my backyard. And this is the simplest form of augmented reality that we can create. So substitution level. So what I'd like to do is to now get into a hands-on activity with everybody. Hopefully this is going to work. I'm going to now move over to my iPad in a moment so that I can then share with you what to do on your screens, and hopefully you've got Reality Composer installed. Keeping in mind, I can't hear any of you, so if you're saying anything to me, I'm just going to assume that you're working along with me, but please shout out, do whatever you need to do if I'm going too fast or if you're not sure what I'm talking about.
Great, sorry for interrupt.
So just yes, you're right.
Okay, sir, can you change the setting for participants? Because some of the participants are in waiting room.
Ah, okay. We want them in here with us.
Yeah, because you are now as the host, right?
So I just need to admit them all. Why is... But,
maybe you can just change the setting at participants on your top right.
I think I just need to get out of my slideshow for a moment, and we'll just admit them all. Okay, I think everybody's in.
I'm not sure. Oh, yes. Yes,
everybody's in?
Yeah, everybody in.
All right.
All right. Thank you very much, great.
Not a problem.
All right, thank you very much.
Sorry, I'm just going to get rid of that screen. Okay, so when we open up Reality Composer very shortly, this is the screen that you will see. Now, you mightn't think that it does, but it is actually very similar to Keynote. So if you're a user of Keynote, you're going to find Reality Composer extremely easy to navigate. You can see that in the top section of the screen, we have, I'll start in the middle. In the middle of the screen, we have our work area. So that's exactly the same as a slide. The work area is where your models are going to sit. And at the moment, we can see there are 2 models in the screen. One is a cube, which has a green ring around it. and the other is a text model that has select to edit written on it. You'll notice that with respect to the model, the three planes can be seen. So we have the red plane, which is the X axis, the green plane, which is the Y axis, and the blue plane, which is the Z axis. Okay, just like in Keynote, where we have different slides, in Reality Composer, we have what's called scenes. So at the moment, this has one scene in it. By the time we finish this session today, we'll have a look at an application that has more than one scene. Down the side are the properties. Again, very similar to Keynote, where the properties sit to the right-hand side of the screen. The only difference is that the icon to get here is not a paintbrush. So the icon sits just above that, which is the one that's highlighted. It's a little blue circle with the 3D box sitting in the middle of it. Across the top are our tools, and we'll go through each of those once I go live with my iPad in a moment. And last but not least, most models allow us to change the look and feel of the model. If we're working with models that are going to perform physics, this is really important. So most of the things that we'll go through this afternoon don't involve physics, but just to explain what that means, and I'm happy to demo this later, we can also have objects that interact in the scene, which means, for example, if I was to drop this cube, what do we want it to do? So this is really good for physics activities. So each of those different types of materials will react differently with the environment. So dropping a plastic cube will react differently to a brick, right? I'm sure you can guess the plastic ones will bounce and the brick ones won't. All right, but we might get a chance to have a look at that this afternoon. All right, so I'm going to attempt going live to my iPad now. I'll just get out of my presentation. And I need to hand over to myself. Okay, so I'll have to cross over to me as a participant. Sorry, please bear with me. Okay. And host. All right. Can you still hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, right. Okay, right.
Now, is my tiger
showing there?
Probably not.
Probably not. I need to share my screen.
Okay, change host. We love technology. Okay, screen. All right. Are you seeing my reality composer screen?
We just see you in screen.
We should be live.
Okay.
Now. That's better.
Right.
Okay. So I'm going to assume that everybody has Reality Composer in front of them.
Sorry, but you are.
Am I echoing?
Yes, you are.
Has that stopped it?
still a bit of echo though.
Okay, I think it was because I have the sound on my iPad and my computer. I'm going to mute my, can you still hear me now?
Ah, yes, loud and clear, thanks.
Yes,
Ah,
very clear.
no problem. Right. So when you first start Reality Composer, you'll see this screen. It's surprisingly not very flashy in that it's just a white screen, and so we're looking at the Files component or Files app on our iPad. So I'm going to assume you're following along, but if not, obviously you can be watching what I'm doing here, if that's okay. So the first thing I need to do is create a document, which I've just done, and it will come up. Now, what happens when we first start Reality Composer is it wants to know what type of anchor to use. So an anchor is the reference point that Reality Composer or any augmented reality needs in order to be able to attach itself to what you're doing. So you'll see there that there are actually 5 types of anchors. We have a horizontal one, which is typically the most common one that we use. So obviously that's for a table or the ground. Vertical, so obviously that one's for a wall. I'm not doing a wall one today because we can easily do the horizontal. A wall one, you would see my terrible messy room that I'm sitting in at the moment, and we don't want that across the world. We are going to do an image one a little bit later on. The face one, please experiment with that yourselves. It's a little bit scary, that one, but it will identify your face and then put a model on it. And then the last one is an object, and I need to be honest here. I spend most of my life up in these 4 and haven't experimented very much with the object one. So I'm going to get back into that one. What you're supposed to be able to do with that is use the onboard camera to take a snapshot of a model that doesn't exist, but we'll leave that one for today. All right, so I'm going to choose horizontal. And what it does is it takes me straight in and shows me the screen that I showed you before, which has my model, the text, and all of the other features. The only thing that you can't see is the scene, but I can open up the scene by going up to where the word projects sits, and you'll see that there's like a little split box, and that split box allows me to pull the scenes up and close it again. So I'm going to leave that closed for now because I need a little bit of real estate space. But I can move around or move the screen around with a single finger to just change the point of view. With 2 fingers, I can now you might also be happy to know that with an Apple Pencil, you get a little bit more connectivity as well. Okay, at the moment, if you have a look, it's really interesting when you're presenting and I can't show where my fingers are pointing, of course, being an iPad. Up in the top right-hand corner, under the menu, you'll see the word scene. So at the moment, we are sitting in a scene that's called scene. We'll come back to that later. I'm going to tap on the cube. And again, if I get your eyes heading up towards that top part of the screen, you'll see that very lightly written is the word object name. One of the things that I really believe in fundamentally, because I'm also a coder, is getting my students to name things straight away so that they can reference what they're looking at later on. So I'm actually going to call this, for the time being, cube, so that I know what I'm looking at. It might seem obvious, but one of the other reasons is that we can also use Reality Composer to communicate with Xcode and also with Swift Playgrounds. But to do that, the objects need to be named. So if you get the students into the habit of naming straight away, that will help them in understanding their coding later on. So I can see a number of details about my cube. I can see its X, Y, and Z position. It's not quite sitting in the middle. So if I wanted it exactly in the middle of the plane, I can simply change its position to 0 and 0 and 0. So far there is nothing difficult with what we're doing. Now, I should have got rid of the sign before. To get rid of the sign, I'm simply double tapped on it and I'm going to hit delete. All right, so I now have my cube. I'm actually not going to leave it at 0, 0, 0 because I need it to sit up on the plane. So it's about 5 centimeters up. And now what I'm wanting to do is have a look at what does that cube look like on my desk. So I'm now going to change the view using the tools at the top to AR. And you'll see my desk. And there's the cube sitting on my desk. My light, my laptop, there we are. And there's the cube. It's now in my environment. Straightforward. Now, this still allows me to interact with that cube and move it around, but this is interacting in painting it like you would in Keynote, so moving around and looking at its properties. Now what I want to do is see what does this cube look like in my world as though I'm interacting with it as an actual object. So next to the AR menu item, you'll see a play button. So I'm going to tap on that. Now I have a cube that is looking like it is on my desk. Okay. So if you've been following along, you've just created your first augmented reality program. As you can see, it's not difficult. Okay. So that is implementing at the very base level. So let's go up one slight level. We're still in the substitute realm. I'm going to actually get rid of that now. If you happen to download my files before, in the files are some models. Now, if you didn't download, I'm going to show you a trick in a minute to get some of those models. To add my own model, I'm going to tap on the plus. And what I have to do is locate where I stored my models. So on my iPad here, I actually have a Reality Composer folder. And the types of models that I can import are called USDZ files. So I've made a folder of those. Inside there, I've got one that's called animals. And I would really like to put that tiger on my desk that you saw with my dog before. You'll see that the tiger is down here at the bottom. And I'm going to tap on that. It now appears in my library. I tap on it again, and I'm going to have a very huge tiger sitting in front of me now. So obviously I don't want it that big. So I need to tap on it to so I can see the blue edging around it. At the moment, I can't see any of the planes to be able to resize it. I can use 2 fingers though, or the other thing to make it easier is simply use the scale over in my toolbox and scale it down. So we'll call it a little mini tiger that's sitting on my desk. It's placed. I'm not going to do anything else with it at the moment because I'm just at the substitution level. All I want is the children in my class to be able to project a lion on the table and say that we saw a lion in our class zoo. Put on AR, move my iPad so that it finds the surface and go into play mode. And there we are. I now have an augmented reality tiger overlooking my laptop. Okay. Now again, because I can't hear you, I'm hoping that you are able to do that and follow along. Before we move on to the next one, because I do want to make sure that you leave this session being able to do more than just placing a tiger on your table, can I just show you by going into Google, I don't want the query mail. In google.com, if I do a search for, you can see I've been looking up Big Sur. the tiger. What you should notice is in the middle of the screen there, next to the moving tiger, it actually says View Tiger in 3D. Now, this is a resource that you can download directly and use it yourselves in Reality Composer. So I simply tap on that View in 3D, it'll download, and in a moment I'll get this screen. So it looks exactly like Reality Composer. There it is, there's our huge tiger sitting up on there. But I actually don't want to view it here because I'm going to use it in Reality Composer. So by tapping the screen again, I can turn it into an object. You'll notice the Share To button up in the top corner. And tapping on that, you'll see that it's called a 3D asset. And now I could save that to files and make that available for use later on. So you can do that with any USDZ model that you can find on the internet. And when we go further this afternoon, I'm going to share with you some websites where you can get those items from. Okay. So that is an example of using Reality Composer at the substitution level. So you might have, if you've got a one-to-one iPad program in your classroom, perhaps you have each student in your class who obtains a 3D model of a zoo animal, and they can all then share the animal that they like from the zoo in your class zoo. It's a simple application. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my iPad and hand back over to myself, hopefully.
Okay. I just need to make myself host again.
Host. Right, great. So you should be seeing me again. And hopefully you've got my screen back up, my model back up. Can you see my keynote?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
No? Nope. Okay. Just a moment. Back into share screen. Aha, that's why. Share again. Not doing too badly. Yes.
All right, very good.
Awesome. Now you can see it.
Awesome. Yes.
Awesome. All right, so we've seen the substitution level, nice and easy. Now we're going to have a look at how we could extend that and take it to what's called the augmentation level. So this is similar to the substitute level where the student's iPad or their computer is directly substituted for a traditional source, but this time we increase the experience that the student creates when they're augmenting their productivity. So what we can do here is if we go back to our example about creating the zoo experience, what we then do is we can use the model that we used before, but then start adding some other things to it and then taking what we've done and putting it into a keynote presentation. So something like this. So what I could do is to record my screen, similar to what I've done to demonstrate to you this afternoon, and then I could present that to the class as a movie in Keynote with me presenting or perhaps putting some facts up on the screen. Now, because the session is on augmented reality, I won't spend any time looking at the Keynote aspect of this, but let's have a look at how we can actually create the lion moving and being able to interact with the environment and sit it on top of another object. Okay, so hands-on activity. Hopefully I've got this down pat now to go between the two. All right. I'm going to stop sharing, go back to me over here, and make me the host again. Yes. And over here, I'm going to share my screen. Screen, start. All right, I think I did better that time, Sukri. All right, so do you have my iPad screen up there for you? All right, I'm going to close that project and I'm going to start a new project again. And it's this time, it's actually going to be an image. So when the project starts, you'll see, and I'll get you to pull up your image in a moment, but I'll just show you initially what this does. You'll see that the hexagon is placed on the screen, and underneath the hexagon is a place setter. And that place setter is the important part of the scene. When I look at the right hand side of the screen, you'll see again that there are various bits of information in here, but at the top there is anchor. The anchor is an image anchor, but because it has an image asset, it needs to find the image to be able to connect with it this time. It has no selection if you have a look about a third of the way down the right-hand side of the screen. So this time what I need to do is to choose the picture, the sketch of the tiger, and this is in the files that I provided everybody. So I'm going to choose that tiger. I'll go back out into my conference files this time. And you can see in my conference files up in the top right-hand corner is the tiger sketch. So I've chosen the tiger sketch. Now I'm going to select it. And I'll just move that out of the way. You can see the tiger is sitting there on the desktop. Now, it doesn't matter how big that tiger is because we won't see it in the final run. Okay, what we're using this for is the placeholder to actually start the activity and the task off. So I'm just going to pop, in fact, I can make that a bit, I will just make it a little bit bigger just so we can see it. And I'll place the hexagon back over the top of it. Now, this time, when I go into the AR mode, instead of it looking for my tabletop, it's actually going to be looking for the tiger sketch. So here we go. So the tiger sketch is sitting over at the back here. You can see that behind my hand. You can see that the hexagon is sitting there, but at the moment, it's not attached. So I have to now move my iPad around until the hexagon moves into place. And now you can see that if I move my piece of paper, because it is the same as the image asset, that hexagon is going to move wherever I want it to go until it gets out of sight, and then it loses control, but it'll come back. So that's the simple part. The next part, we already know how to do. We're going to get rid of the hexagon model, and we're going to add to our scene the tiger. So I'll import that in again. As you can see, I keep all of my files separated so that I know what I'm looking for. I'm going to import the tiger. Tap on there. And again, keeping in mind, it's huge the first time I bring it in, so I'm going to bring it down, select it and bring it down in size a bit. That's better. You'll notice that I can use the halos to turn around, but I can also use the halos to change size if I want. So for the time being, I'm just going to simply place my tiger there. And again, because I'm a coder, when I'm teaching students about coding, I try to emphasize the importance of continually testing and making sure it does what it's meant to do, because there's no point in getting to the end thinking I've put everything in and it bombs, it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. So before I try and put anything else cool in here, I'm going to just test that the tiger works now with the background image. So again, I was already working in AR mode. I go back in. Because my iPad had already detected the scene before, it doesn't need to redo it. It would only be if I close this and then restart it again. So now when I hit play, we can see the tiger nicely sitting on top of the sketch or moves as I move the sketch around. So I can actually do a complete 360 of my tiger, and then if I even pick up the page, you'll see that the tiger stays attached. Okay. Before I move on, nothing special in the image. Obviously, though, the clearer it is, the better Reality Composer will pick up that you're using it as your placeholder. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is to add the base model that I had before. So in the conference files I provided, there should hopefully be, maybe not. No, that's okay. We'll stop that. I'll show you that part in a moment. But what we're going to do now is we're going to add a little bit of behavior to our tiger, because we want the tiger to move. That's what helps us to take this up to the augmented level. So not every model has movement, but I know from viewing this model through Google that it actually does have a movement. So now I need to actually introduce a new part of Reality Composer to my students. Up the top next to the AR tab that we tapped on before, you'll see that there's an arrow with 5 little offshoots from it. This is our Behaviors tab, and you'll see that I get a new screen at the bottom portion of my working area, and there's a Behaviors title with a plus sign next to it, and no behaviors at the moment. So I'm going to tap on the plus, and what I'm wanting to do is to add a simple behavior to this tiger. The type of behavior I'm going to add is one that's called custom. So I scroll all the way down to the bottom, tap on custom. Before I go anywhere though, to keep in true sense to what I mentioned before, I'm going to change the name of this to tiger movement so that I know that I've named this behavior. I need 2 things. I need a trigger and I need an action. So in the trigger box, I tap and I've got a number that I can select from. The really cool one is this one that's at the top of my list now called proximity, but we're going to come back to that one soon. For the time being, I'm going to work using tap. So what's going to happen is when I tap the tiger model, once it's displayed, it's then going to do the actions that I set to it. So I'm going to tap on the action sequence now. The action sequence that I want is all the way at the bottom, which is USDZ animation. I tap on that, and that sets that up. Now you'll notice that I have in both my trigger and in my action sequence an error symbol. That's because I haven't chosen the model to work with. So back on the trigger, I'm going to tap on the error symbol and then hit choose. And Reality Composer wants me to choose the item that's going to make this happen. So in this case, it's the tiger. You'll notice that the tiger goes green. Then I hit done. So over here in the USDZ animation, I'm going to do the same thing. Choose, tap on the tiger. Now, if the model didn't have an animation, I wouldn't be able to tap on it. And I'm going to hit done. Now I can test it out. So I'm going back into AR, set the model, and now I'm going to play it. So at the moment, nothing is happening because what I told the application to do is to only react when I tap it. So now if I tap the model on screen, the model moves. So at the augmented level, this allows students to do something that that's similar to what they've done before, but just to add to their experiences and take it to that next level. And as you can see in the classroom, it's very easy to get to the augmented level. I can do other things. I can add sounds. We'll do all of that a little bit later on, but I can add sounds. I could add my voice in here with information about what the tiger is doing. Okay. Now, I mentioned before that there's another cool, really cool option in here that's called proximity to camera. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to get rid of this trigger. And I'm going to add a behavior again. I'm still going to have it as a custom. Change the name. This time I'll call it Auto Tiger. I love proximity to camera. So when we choose the tiger this time and hit done, you'll see that I can surround the tiger in a green bubble. And that green bubble is the proximity that the camera can come to this model. So at the moment, it's from the center of the model, so it's actually sitting under the tiger, and I'll talk to you later about ways that we can get around this. But I'm going to make this bigger. So about here, about 35 centimeters away. I'll take my iPad back so it doesn't work straight away. Then I'm going to put the same action in. I'm going to tell it to USD animation, choose the tiger, and done. So this time when I play the augmented reality, when I move the camera in, you'll see that I didn't have to tap. The tiger started moving once the camera got close. Now, it can be a little bit deceiving with how close the camera needs to be for reacting. So that's something that you might need to experiment with. While you might think of 35 centimeters, it might not actually feel like 35 centimeters. One of the other little things I think it might be a bug in Reality Composer is it sometimes jumps around too between centimeters and meters. So just be careful that you haven't set it to 35 meters because that can make your application a lot different. Okay, so we've had an example of substitution. We've had an example of augmentation. I'm going to take myself off here again now. Stop sharing. And I'm going to put myself back over here. Okay. Share my screen. Okay. How are we doing? Are we keeping up?
Yes.
Excellent. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, modification. This starts to get really interesting now. So this is where we move from the enhancement model to the transformation model. So instead of just replacing or enhancing this is where we actually really change our designs of what we're doing. So we can look here at creating interactive presentations using our 3D models and augmented reality. So I'll give you an example of what I mean by this, and then we're going to work through one. This one's actually going to really test you out. We're going to make what you see on the screen in a moment. So here we have a similar...
What?
Here we have a similar scenario where
the file is not burning the container.
We're using an image holder, but this time we have interactions occurring. And I've also taken it one step further in that I've used two languages in this presentation. So we're going to have a look at how we can create something like this.
You can see you when you lie behind.
I think Feraz's mum is saying something, is she?
Just a minute, Dede. File's mic the whole time is on.
Okay, hopefully everybody is hanging in there and able to do some of these things. Okay. Oop. Forgot to share again. Okay, I'm going to start again another project, and again this time it is using the image anchor. Just like I did before, I need to set up the image anchor. So I'm going to go back into my conference files, and in my images folder you'll see that I have the Panda card. Now hopefully if you're following along at home, you've printed the Panda card. If not, you could take a quick photo of something now. It doesn't have to be the Panda card. We just need something that it will reference. All right, so you can see the Panda card. Again, if I go into AR, the hexagon will now sit on top of the Panda. And when I move it, Panda will come into, well, the hexagon will move with it. Okay. So I'm going to get out of there. All right, now if you've been following along, we're really going to up the ante on the instructions now. Okay, so this is going to start getting a little harder, but it's still doable, very doable for this afternoon. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab my Panda model. Now again, nothing special, the Panda model straight off Google. Why? Because it's free, it's available, and it's animated. That's what makes it really cool. So I'm going to go into models and grab Panda. The Panda is an absolutely huge model, as you can see. So we need to really scale it down. And I'm going to sit Panda on top of the card, maybe move the card back a little bit. And again, name it. So I know that this is the Panda. And just check that Panda works. And there's Panda, beautiful. Hopefully I've got a room full of experts with doing that part. All right. Now, this project involves the user being able to tap on one of three bamboo sheets. We're going to do one because we'll run out of time if we try to do any more, but you'll get the general idea. So I'm going to add another model. So this time I'm importing a model, and you can see if you downloaded the toolkit that I have a bamboo model. So I'm going to add that, and again the bamboo model is humongous. Okay, so I'm going to shrink it down I certainly don't need bamboo that big. Get down a little bit more. Okay, and it doesn't really matter where I place it for today. This is just a quick show. But I'll pop it there because I'll be able to work with it. And again, I'm going to call this bamboo, but this time I'm going to call it 1 because when I copy it, all I have to do is copy this later on. Once I get it working for 1, I don't have to do all the hard work again, but Reality Composer will automatically rename everything 2, 3, 4 in sequence. I'm just going to test it out and make sure it's placed where I want it, and that will be perfect. So I've got my panda and I've got my bamboo. In case you noticed, the bamboo was moving a little bit with the iPad then. That is primarily because I haven't actually set it to 0 on the Y plane, so it doesn't know where to sit it. I'm just going to do that now. Now it's sitting in the right place. So that will be perfect, that will do. Now, before I do any magic here, I'm going to use one more model. This is a special sort of model. It's a built-in model and it's found in the arts section. It's the second one, it's a frame, but it's a frame without a border. This frame allows me to bring in a picture. Most importantly, it allows me to also bring in PNG with alpha. So I could actually bring a panda in that is just a flat picture that has an alpha section and I can see through it. So I'm going to call this information card 1. Okay. So I'm going to put my information card into this picture. So you'll see over about halfway down on the right-hand side in the configure, it says image, no selection, so I can choose. You'll see I've already got a panda card there, but I need the information card, which is in my panda cards. And I want the English version for the time being of facts. So I'm going to add that. And you'll see now I've got a fact card sitting next to my panda. Now the only problem is if I play this now, it's lying down, it's on the desktop. So not as convenient. So what I want to do is rotate it up so that I can now see it front on when I'm looking at it. Okay, so my scene is set, but at the moment, when I view my scene, there's nothing special. So we know that this is either a substitution or an augmented. We haven't reached the next level yet. To reach the next level in my presentation, I need to now go into the behaviors again. This time, what I need to happen is, because eventually I'll have 3 cards in this, I don't want the 3 cards visible when the person using my little program here uses it. I don't want them visible. So I need to set the scene up to start off with. So what I'm going to do is go into behaviors, and there's a couple of things that I can do here. First of all, I'm going to make use of start hidden as a behavior. I'm going to change the name of this scene to start scene. Now, with the start scene, I can tell as many objects that I want to be hidden that I would like. So I'm going to choose, but I only want that one. So that's the only one I'm going to have chosen. I can see there it says 1 object is chosen. Really important thing is to make sure, because this is the beginning of the scene, I want the duration to be 0 seconds. They're going to go away immediately. I'm going to test that out again. Okay, so I place the items, play it, and now, yes, I've got that doing what I want. It's actually hidden the card. That's awesome. That's exactly what I want. The next thing, though, is when it hides that, I would actually really like for my panda to start moving at the same time. So I can add more than one action. So I tap on Add Action Sequence. I'm going to go down here and play USDZ animations. Now, at the moment, it thinks that I've chosen this one, so I'm just going to take it off. I'm going to take it off that and done. So I'm going to, whoops, sorry, put that one back on. Done. I'm going to add that one back in, play USDZ animation. So I choose the panda. I don't want anything else chosen. The duration of the animation is 21 seconds. I'm going to leave it on one iteration for the time being. So now my startup routine will actually do both of those things. So let's have a look. So you can see that my information card is hidden and my panda has started eating his own piece of bamboo, or her own piece of bamboo. Okay, let's continue. Now I need a new behavior. I'm basically going to change the bamboo stick into a button. Now, while I'm doing this, I do want to point out that there is no coding in Reality Composer. So most of the things that I'm showing you here are little tips and tricks for making it feel like there's coding available, but there's no scripting language. There's just behaviors that we can add. If you're wanting to do real coding, you have to go and do it in Xcode or in Swift Playgrounds. That's what makes this so easy to use in the classroom. Okay, so I'm going to call this Bamboo 1. My trigger for Bamboo 1 is to tap on it, and I'm going to select the bamboo stick and hit done. Now, what do I want it to do? Well, I actually want it to show an object, which is this one, not that one. And this time, out of interest, let's make it take 3 seconds, and it's actually easier to type it in. Let's take 3 seconds to show, and I can choose different motions. So with the motion type, I might choose from below. Okay, so again, we can test it and see what's happening. Our objects get placed. We run the session. Now when I tap on the bamboo, there it is. All right, now you probably noticed that you could see it coming up through the table. So there's all sorts of things that I would do if we had more time to make that neater so that it appeared differently. Okay, now the other thing that I would probably do at this point too is to add in there, hide it after a certain number of seconds, or hide it if I tap on it again. But because I'm wanting to show you something different, hopefully you've got the general idea of what you could do. So this is well and truly moving our use of augmented reality into modification now. So I'm going to turn that off there. And I mentioned to you before about the fact that we can see scenes. I'm going to rename this scene. Sorry, that's properties. And I'm going to call this scene English. Now, if I can get you to imagine that I've fully set this scene up, it's got 3 bamboo sticks as buttons, it's got my 3 information cards, my showing and my hiding is all working. I'm really happy with my scene. It's ready to go. I'm going to super impress my teacher. I'm going to get an A+ for this research assignment. Yay. But what I could do is impress my teacher even more by presenting it to my science teacher, but also present this to my Chinese teacher because I learned Chinese at school. So I've named that scene English. Now what I could do, oops, sorry, is go back out and I can duplicate this scene. So you'll see it's called English 1. I'm going to go into English 1 and I'm going to change this to Chinese. Now, I can't play this just yet because if I do, I'm only going to see English text. So what I need to do is tap on my original card that was here, and this time where it says configure, I'm going to use replace. And I'm going to import, and I'm going to import the Chinese facts that I prepared earlier and select that. So now you can see that I have my facts written in Chinese, and my Chinese teacher is going to be really impressed with my work. So when I run this scene now, it's exactly the same scene, but instead, my information facts, when they appear, are in Chinese. And I could go on from there. So the more I add to it, the more I am modifying the learning experience and the outcomes of what I'm doing. So hence that taking it to the modification level. If I take you in very quickly, where's my example of it? Projects. I will find my sample version of this where you can see the whole thing working. Sorry. And it's gone from me. That's okay. We'll have time. I will find that before we finish up and I can show you that properly. But you saw that in the video before. Okay, so we've looked at substitution, augmentation, and modification. Let me just pop back into my other screen again. And back to myself. Okay. How's everybody going? Has it been a lot to take in?
It's super awesome. Reality Composer is really, really cool.
Awesome. That's good to hear. All right. We'll move on. So we talked about them. Sorry. We talked about that one. We have a quick look at that. Okay. And then you can see the layout of my project. I will find that and show you the full thing. Okay, so the redefinition. So this is probably the hardest one to get to. However, hopefully you're seeing already that with what I've worked through, it's only going to be one more little step and we get to the redefinition stage. So in the redefinition level, this is where we have students use their iPads in ways where you just couldn't possibly think it was possible. And it creates a brand new experience that perhaps wasn't there before. Now, I mentioned earlier that I like seeing an app and how it works, and then seeing what I can do myself in the tools that I have to create my version of it. So I really like Scavenger. I can show you an example of my version of Scavenger that I've started working on, but before I get there to that, what I'm going to do is to show you how I put together the science model that I showed you before. So this one is looking at a science experiment where we take it to that next level where we can present the user with 3D models that interact with research and sounds that will help the end user to understand what's happening. Now, before we get to mine, this is an example of what I mean by that. So apps such as one that shows parts of the body and allows you to interact with it. Okay, so here's the short, I want to go back to that screen. So wanting to suggest that the teacher has given this assessment task to students where they've been asked to investigate how different chemicals react to a flame. They need to describe the change in flame colour if there is any change, but they also need to ensure the safety of all the participating students. So nobody can get hurt, and they need to complete the task within the school safety guidelines. So we'll say that that's been the task that they were offered, and then this is how that's been attacked. So that was tapping on the information button and then the flame button. So the lithium ion button was tapped on. The spoon appears as though it's gone into the lithium ion and then is placed inside the flame. The flame went red. And there's one more example with tin. So as you can imagine, quite a lot went into making sure that that could actually work. Now, I actually have, we'll reshare my other screen. A new share, and I want this one. So hopefully you can now see, you can see Reality Composer on my laptop, hopefully. Now, I did actually create that Reality Composer project on my laptop because it was more complicated, but having said that, it would certainly be very, very possible to create that straight up on the iPad as well. So you can see it here. It's a number of models. And sometimes you have to be crafty because I couldn't find a pipe model. So you can see I grabbed a hose model to place on here. Now you can all see, can you all see my project? Oh, hang on. Sorry. Go back and share that again. That's better. You can see that?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So there's a number of types of models. I actually found a Bunsen burner model. A Bunsen burner model is built into Reality Composer. I found a beaker model. These were simply made from icon cutouts that I Googled and turned using the art model that I showed before, the frame. Same with these ones here. So this one is still a square model, but it just happens to have the alpha channels. I found a spoon model. The challenge in this project, and this is what takes it to that next level, is, excuse me, is the fact that I needed to portray information to people. So I needed, and I don't like to record my voice, so I did record a voice telling the user about their experience, but I also wanted the interactions with things like the spoon. So I'm going to show you one example of how that spoon is has been manipulated. So it is in the, move that out of the way. It is in the behaviours, and you'll see there's quite a few behaviours for this one. So each of the reactions has its own behaviour, and the instructions has its own behaviour, and the safety has its own behaviour. So if I have a look at what needed to happen in order to make the barium reaction, you'll see that it all starts with a tap. So if I was playing this model back, I would start by tapping on the barium icon. That starts the whole thing off. And then it's just like reading a story, hide. So it says, okay, I'm going to hide all of those items because I know I don't want those. And by hiding them, they won't get interacted with. The next thing I need to do is I need to get the spoon and I need to make it move. And you can see that it moves over here. So it's picked up and moves. After that occurs, I actually need to tell the spoon to move again. So I'm just going to zoom out to where the spoon is. Oh, sorry, there's the spoon. And when I hit done, so I really had to think about this. And that's why this takes this to the redefinition level. Because I had to think about how was I going to make a spoon look like it was picked up, move across, dip into the chemical, move back up and go across to the flame. Because I can't do that in one move. And I don't have a scripting language, but I can do it by affecting different behaviors to make it happen. So that's where we got to with that. It then waits for a moment and then we continue on. There we are there. So the next part, and I'll just go quickly through this. I need to choose the spoon again. You'll see that it keeps going back to the original location of the spoon because that's where it originally sat. But this time it's now moved it down to here. And I've tilted it so that it looks like it's gone into the barium. Now, can I just mention that at this point, I was a bit skeptical because the movement is showing that it's going from here to here. What I was expecting to happen was the spoon to go here to here, here to here, here to here. I was really relieved when it didn't do that it actually took it from the previous location. So it really is about experimenting to see what you can do. And you can see that that continues on. Then I get into the really interesting part. So if that's not interesting enough in itself, you'll see in here, I've actually got a whole heap of different coloured flames. But what I had to do is then tell it which one to be on and which ones to be off. So I had to work all of those out. So before setting this up as a final project, I actually had each of the flames separated out. So they look something, I want me to move them. I think I've locked it. So, but that way I could actually determine what I wanted it to do. So when this was originally running, I had flames running all along here, just so I could test that my experiment was working. And once I was happy with the whole thing, I moved the flames all in on top of each other to give the effect. Now, I'm not super happy with my flames. I'd much rather have more realistic flames, but I'm not an artist. It was the best that I could do to create models in this instance. I don't think my teacher would be too critical of my flames. They represent what it's meant to do. We then get to the towards the end, and we play a sound in this instance. So yes, you can also play sounds, and this is the audio clip that says what the barium flame did. So it plays that back, and so on. So this was extremely challenging to put together, enjoyable to put together, because it really made me think very hard about how to achieve what I wanted it to do. But it's certainly something that the more experience you have and the more experience that students have, they could certainly achieve this and be working at that higher level in the redefinition areas of the SAMR model. All right, so I'm just going to hide that and reshare, because we are getting very close to our time. Now, actually, I will go back to that just for one moment because I've got another example that I can show very quickly. Bear with me while I... back to sharing that screen again. Okay. Oh, sorry. I'm just going to open up another project. Share my screen. This is just another one, so you can see that it doesn't have to be in a science type subject to actually use augmented reality. The way that this is sitting at the moment, it appears as though this is a painting inside a regular frame. However, if we put this onto our iPad and then put it into augmented reality mode, you would be able to walk through this painting, because if I turn its side on and take this off, you'll see sorry, I will just open that up again. Apologies. Okay, I'll try not to move it around too much. But you can see that I've broken the painting down into different objects, and as you walk through the painting with your AR, you can actually experience the different parts of the painting. So that's just another way that augmented reality can be used to enhance learning experiences or enhance what the student is producing. Why would you do this one? Because perhaps you're talking about what the artist has actually designed in their painting, and you might want to do the walkthrough so that when you go past each object, a recorded voice tells you the artist chose pinks and silvers to design this building, but to highlight that and offset it, greens and reds were used in the leaves, etc., and highlighted it back through flowers and stars. I'm not an artist, so you can probably tell that, but again, it's just another example of things that you can use Reality Composer for. Okay, I have one last thing just to share with you before we can do any questions or what have you. Let me just pop this screen back on. Share and go into here. I just wanted to mention this absolutely cool tool. Even though I'm going to talk to you very quickly about where you can find models, sometimes you can't find a model. So on an iPad or on an iPhone, this tool is the coolest tool. So that is one of the coolest tools I've come across. And what I did was, I'm assuming that you guys have IKEA or at least some sort of department store in your areas. I went to IKEA and got a Lazy Susan and used that to allow it to easily turn around. I'm going to share one more screen with you once it's loaded, just to mention about places to get models. Oh, I'm hoping I didn't jump out then. Share my screen. Okay, so this screen, this website called Sketchfab is where you can get a lot of free models. You can also buy them, but there's a lot of free models on here. So doing a search for a model, make sure you click on downloadable. If you want them with animations, you can also select animated, and it will give you models that you can download. You can tell ones that need to be purchased because they have the dollar symbol, and ones that can be downloaded have the little downloadable symbol. And in most cases, if you're working in education, that you don't need to do anything, but it's always nice to acknowledge the person who's designed the model. But there's plenty of models in here, so lots of things that you could use in your augmented reality experiences after today. And of course, the other one is USDZ Share. And it is another website where everyday people like us create their models and make them available for teachers and students to download and use wherever you're needing to use them. Okay.
Right.
Wow, a lot of things that we went through. Hopefully people kept up with that and that you're finding things useful and of interest. I will make mention that I will provide you with the link to all my conference materials. There's a page where you can download all the projects that we've had a look at tonight if you haven't done so already. You can also download the keynote so that you can run through it at your own leisure. So that will be made available. I'll send that through to the ADE team in Malaysia, and they can get that out the best way that's possible to everybody.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you very much. Okay, Craig, can you pass the host to me back?
I will certainly do that for you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Host, there you are.
All right. So,
that's what you should be host again.
Yes. Thank you very much, Craig. Really awesome, super awesome from Reality Composer. And we learned a lot from Craig. Okay, so thank you very much again.
My absolute pleasure. It's been wonderful.
And then thank you to all participants who are joining us for this evening session. And I would like to remind to all participants, okay, don't forget to join us again today at 9 p.m. We're going to learn from Stanley Sim Yong Sang, okay, about visualizing mathematics with numbers. And this requirement is you need to have numbers in your iPad or in your Macs, okay?